A kid. He's wandering up and down Hollywood Boulevard. He is convinced he is going to be famous in the town where the stars are ingrained in sidewalks.
It was just some talk on the street with street kids about if you go to Hollywood, you can make it, you'll be a success. You know, everyone there goes, they become a star. So I fell for it. I was 13, it was in the 70s, I fell for it.
Matthew Bozier. His story is one of success in the City of Angels, but it's not in the way he imagined it.
I knew I was gay. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that, and yet it made me a target for some horrific bullying incidents in school.
After months of enduring abuse, he simply did what any rational 13-year-old would do. He stopped attending. When his devout Catholic mother found out he was truant, she confronted her son.
And I told her it was because I was gay. And she said, "No, you're not." And she said, "You'll never step foot in this house until you're done and not gay." And she dragged me across the floor and threw me out the door.
And this says something about the determination of a teenager. He didn't stick around. Fine, he thought. I'll head to Hollywood and become the next Donny Osmond. So he scraps together enough for a bus ticket and lands in this park.
I thought, well, the park, that's cool. I did that in San Francisco. I'll find a boyfriend, just so I'll be great.
And time passes. No stardom. He's still on the streets. For all the chaos, he says his life is one of routine. Wake up, wash, try to earn money any way he can, eat. A hot dog stand across the street from the park, called Okie Dogs, would occasionally provide a meal. But one night, 14 skinheads appeared across the street.
I heard one of them yell the phrase, "Let's kill the faggots," and I realized that my life at that point was in danger.
Matthew then took off running down the alley, but the mob had split in two and cornered him.
They relentlessly started kicking, punching, knocking me down to the ground. The 14 skinhead also had razor blades in their boots, so as they were kicking, their goal and their intent was, it wasn't maximum damage, it was actually their intent was to kill the kid that was in the alley. And I just existed hour by hour, and what would happen next. There's a part where you give in. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, and hopefully it's death.
But he persevered. The 13-year-old who hopped on that bus to Hollywood, he made it out of the park. First by working at a fast food restaurant, and then as a hairstylist. He then found a job at the Museum of Tolerance, a unique multimedia museum examining racism and prejudice throughout the world.
And it was the perfect outlet for exactly what I was looking for. It was using other people's stories to inspire youth to stand up and to realize, to become aware that outside of their bubble, what is going on and what they're participating in.
And that fact is one amazing quality the museum has. There's an attraction that people with troubling pasts have to this place, like Timothy Zoll.
I went many, many years where hate and violence for me was like breathing. I couldn't live without it. It was like being a junkie.
And Tim recounts early childhood violence that led him down a path to become a white supremacist.
My brother being shot by an African American, I think, is the number one reason why I became a racist, an extreme racist.
He eventually served time after being convicted of assaulting an Iranian couple. The bars didn't change Tim, though. All it took was a moment with his son.
I'm in the grocery store with my son. He sees an African American man in the store and says, "Look, Daddy, there's a big black," and blurts out the N-word. And I was starting to rethink my life, my living patterns, the kind of things that I was doing.
And in this amazing microcosm of a museum, in one of the largest cities of the world, people like Matthew and Tim, with such different pasts, are brought together to share experiences and make an impact. The pair give presentations to youth groups and recount one school group in particular that had a racial issue.
Matthew wanted to discuss, how best to approach this particular group, and we went to have coffee and talk about the situation.
in those first few months, I'm thinking of him as this really cool guy that I want to get to know more about, which was why I reached out to him when there was this issue at a school.
And during our conversation, we started to talk about where we used to hang out, you know, Hollywood. He was talking about Okie Dogs and the park, and I was talking about punk rock and Okie Dogs. And I said something like I quit going there because of violent behavior that I was involved with, and he started to ask all these questions.
So there was a moment of, I mean, absolute disbelief, because you're just saying, like, this cannot possibly be true, and at the same time you're like, no, the only people who know what happened in the alley are me and 14 guys who were there. And I'm sitting across from one of those 14.
The time, the place, it all started to add up. But it was the look and feel of that final boot that gave the pair the proof they needed.
And I also used to take the corners of razor blades and break them off and stick them in the toes and the sides of my boots. And when I kicked him in the head, he was out.
So here they were, two men, a victim, a perpetrator. Matthew and Tim kept their distance until museum programmers got wind of their story and encouraged them to begin a program called Hate to Hope.
And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really like him. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. You're just going to tell the story. I'm like, but I don't know if I can sit on a stage with him. I wasn't there yet.
I mean, we were sort of thrown together. And I knew that there was a process to go through.
No one could have guessed that the process would turn into a relationship with all the quirks and banter of a substantial friendship.
But Facebook's pretty cool because MySpace, because it's got a bunch of...
These two guys, they have this goofiness to them, but it just clicks.
But the beautiful part of all of that is that we're simply just two people who are completely normal. Who doesn't get frustrated with their friends when they don't think they're doing what they want them to do, and so on and so forth, and all those normal things. And that's an incredible process.
The one amazing thing you begin to realize, these two aren't so different. Their childhood was fraught, they felt alone, they felt isolated. And it led them down a path. And it wasn't until the two met that they were able to let it all go. For Time Video, Sean Donnelly, reporting from Los Angeles, California.